just a mapping for Spencer and for every other child who has a name, and who has a name that is spelt using graphemes that are not going to be covered in our first few weeks of teaching prep, or reception, however brilliant our phonics teaching is. The children cannot wait to map these words. 2 graphemes representing the S phoneme and 1 representing the schwa. Our schwa monster looks so silly. Sometimes we dress up as the speech sound monsters. And what about Lara? Lara. She's got 2 A's in her name. Neither of them represent the A speech sound that she's going to look at in the first few weeks of reception. The A represents the schwa at the end. Another schwa. The schwa is really common in names. It's a funny grunty sound, and it sounds a bit silly outside of a word, like an
Again, Maya.
I.
I often have people saying to me, I understand the speech sound monsters. I want to use the speech sound monsters. Speech sound monsters because I understand the IPA. I understand that the monsters just represent, they're just a phonetic symbol for kids. I understand that. However, the people who are making decisions about my budget or how I teach or whatever else don't understand the IPA. They don't really understand the science of reading. They don't really understand orthographic mapping or the cognitive linguistic processes that go on when children learn to read and spell. This is what I've found tends to help people get over that if they're trying to block you from doing what you need to do, which is in itself just a bleh. This is the way I say it. I say, right, do the children in the class matter? Do their names matter when they first come in? So if we've got, let's say, 2 children that are coming into my class. Let's say I'm a prep teacher and someone said, oh no, I don't understand it and it's cognitive overload and whatever else. Then I'll say, okay, I've got 2 children coming into my class in September or January, depending on where you teach. Their names are Spencer and Lara. And when they come in, there are their names. So obviously I'm going to spend the first week or so actually talking about who we are. I want the children to feel like they belong. So their names matter. Now, with our phonics teaching, we're teaching a really nice, robust, systematic way of teaching phonics. However, although Spencer's okay with this, we're going to introduce this as a representation of the speech sound very early on. What about this one? Because we're not going to introduce this one actually until they're at, oh, I haven't got my phonics strip. Let me just see if I've got a strip. No, so we're not actually going to introduce the CE as the representation, sorry, it's the C as the representation for S, until the children are actually in the purple code level. So this little boy is going to be able to see this straight away, but isn't going to actually see the C for quite a long time. And yet his name is his name. He goes in with his name on day 1. So although my instruction is around explicit phonics teaching, I'm going through the 4 code levels. So I'm introducing 100 or so high frequency grapheme to phoneme, phoneme to grapheme combinations. What about Spencer? What about Lara? Lara might come into school with knowing that this is the letter R. This is the letter, let's say she knows this is an L, she knows this is an A, she knows this is an R, she knows this is an A again. So she's going to come into school already knowing her letter names, because let's say her mummy has been, doing what she knows the schools are going to do, which is test for letter name knowledge. So she's going to come in with her name. Okay, so what I say to people is, okay, so these children are coming in. I cannot deprive them. I cannot ignore their names. So this is what I do. I show their names as Spencer, Spencer, and of course I didn't say the fact that the schwa, a lot of phonics programs don't even cover the schwa. So when is Spencer going to know that an ER represents the schwa sound in his name? Lara. Laura. So this person who is being sort of, not really trusting my judgment as a teacher, in that I'm saying I know this is going to be really effective for the children, because the children is going to make sense to the children, even if it doesn't make sense to you, the person who's sitting in their air-conditioned office and doesn't actually teach children. Sorry, this little bit, and there's a really good admin people, very good school leaders. Sorry, that sounded really dismissive. So what I'm saying to them is, look, Spencer's going to come in. I need him to understand the mapping of his name, because that underlies everything about what we're doing. As a school, we're teaching phonics. Well, I can't ignore the phonics with regards to those children's names, and I can't expect them to wait to spell their name using mapping until we teach that. They're coming in, this is their name. So even if we only explored their name, this is really important. Is that important to you? And I'd ask them, is their name, the mapping of their name, important to you? And if they say no, well, walk away. Fund it yourself, and yes. Anyway, but the whole process of this is they're not ready to understand unless they've done SSP, code mapping in preschool, so monster mapping or whatever in preschool. They're not going to understand that these squiggles represent speech sounds that we say, and it depends on the word. So what we're going to do is it doesn't matter about that. What matters is, in your name, can you hear the sounds Spencer? Okay, well, in your name, the pictures for those sounds, so these monsters, this monster loves the sound, so the picture for the sound in your name at the beginning looks like this, whereas you heard another didn't you? So these speech sound lines organise it. So we heard even if they don't know what these letters are, they're hearing the sound, so it's just the duck sounds. So so even if they're not doing that, they know. On the number 5, the speech sound monster is going to sit again, isn't it? Because if we just had the speech sound lines, the monster 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 and monster again they're going to sit on those speech sound lines, aren't they? So his name, I want him to understand the speech sounds. Now, speech sounds are speech sounds. They're something we say and we hear. So these are manipulatives for speech sounds. They're an alternatives to speech sounds that are not linked with letters, because as we've seen in the name Spencer, letters don't mean squat unless they're in a word. So this C represents the S, whereas in our phonics, he is going to look at this C can represent a K, like in the word cat, but in his name, before he's even looked at that, the C in his name represents the speech sound. So what I'm saying to people is that the monsters give the visual representation for something we hear, and actually the children who can't hear it really need it to have that link between seeing something they can't hear very well. So in Spencer's name, right from the beginning, it's that in the first week it's the speech sound monsters all have their own speech sound. They learn all the monster sounds. They don't learn the phonetic symbols, they just learn the sounds. So they learn to look at him and go, they learn to meet him and go, learn to look at the twins and go, oi, learn to look at the triplets and go, ow, etc. So they know the sound, which means that if they know the sound, it doesn't matter about these squiggles yet. What matters is, okay, in your name is Spencer. Okay, so the monsters are telling us Spencer, that's why we do the lines, because I missed a sound. Spencer. So in your name, which monsters would love your name? Monster, 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 and monster again. Oh, I had a spare. Where's it gone? Here it is. Oh. And then the Now at the beginning they have arguments about whether it's an or a schwa. He's likely to say, oh, I think it's Spencer, and we can talk about that later. But for now, that would be fine, or the schwa, it doesn't matter. The schwa, if you say Spencer in a sentence, of course it's a schwa, but when they're doing duck sounds, Spencer, they open their mouths wider. So actually he is using this, and it's his name, so we're not going to argue. So Spencer. The children in the first week of kindergarten prep reception understand this. So then we're saying to them at the beginning and the first week of prep, we're saying, you know this monster sound, this monster who says the sound S. Well, we're going to look at the first picture in his cloud, in his spelling cloud, and it looks like that. So, and they'll say, yes, the letter S, and you say, yes, it is, it's a letter S. And it's also one of the pictures for the speech sound S. For example, in the word sip, we always have to have an example word. So in your name, this is the picture for S. In your name, this is the picture for P. It doesn't matter why. All that matters for him is, in my name, these are the sound pictures. In my name, here is the sound picture for S. In my name, here is the sound picture for even though it's a schwa. So in the end of the first week, it doesn't matter about our phonics. It doesn't matter, we haven't even introduced phonics yet, other than showing their words and other than showing their names, and other than the concepts. That's what we're introducing the first week. Then by the end of the first week, we're introducing the concept of a picture of a sound. So even in the first week, he understands why his name is mapped like this. Why? Because of speech sound, because of duck hands, lines, numbers, and the speech sound monsters. So Mrs. or Mr. budget holder, that is why I want to use the monsters, even if for no other reason. It is so that the children who come into my class in week 1 understand why their name, and some names are really bizarre and don't even follow the spelling patterns. That's how I'm going to show them about what reading and spelling is, that it's speech sounds represented on paper, even if mummies and daddies or parents or carers or whatever else have spelt my name really peculiarly. Now this one isn't spelt weirdly, but think about what I said about letter names. Lara comes into school, she's never done SSP before. I'm not talking about our Laura, obviously, because our Laura is a SSP superstar. So she comes in and she goes, oh, here's my name, Lara. It's Lara. And she feels great about herself, and so she should. But her name is Lara. Lara. So without me having to explain the complexity of the English language, in the first week she's doing duck hands, lines, and numbers for Lara. Lara. Okay, so the monsters are and that's the phonetic symbol. And again she says, oh, I want to use the blue cow because that's the and I say Lara instead of the schwa, which is really the schwa. So here we've got, and she says, and she says, yes, but R is this. That's the letter R. I say, yes, it is. That's absolutely right. This is the letter R. But this monster says the sound this monster says the sound R. It does sound like when I'm talking about the letter R, doesn't it? But actually it's just the sound. So this monster just loves the sound R, and we have to think about which pictures R has. Oh gosh, can I see it? Which pictures R has for his sound. So he just loves the sound R, but actually, do you know what's so funny? There is no letter R in the R cloud. Isn't that funny? So here we're thinking about the sounds. Lara. So what are the pictures? The picture for in your name is this one. The picture for R in your name is this one. The picture for in your name is this one. And look, you've got 2 A's, and this time it's an or a schwa. Lara. And at the end of the first week of prep, she goes, yep, okay, got it. It just makes sense. So that's why.
My name is Lara. Lara. I have 2 I's in my name, and one says and one says Here's a serious one.
Spencer, well done. You made your name.
I wanted the up because I didn't like that sound.
Oh, so what's this one here? What does that say? Oh. All right. And what does this new one say? Great. And can you say your name again on your, use your app to say your name?
Ma.
Oh, Maya.
Because I wanted the game to spell. I want something else too.
Okay, what do you want?
I want an SSP box that we have to get the right ones in and then we put cards on them.
Oh, like Spencer's mum made.
Yeah.
Oh, that looked like fun, didn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think about this app with all the
Good.
sounds?
Good.
So while our preschoolers, before they even start school, are discussing which phoneme to grapheme mapping to use in their name, we're finding that some people are blocking the use of something that the children understand when they're 3 and 4 years old. So what we need to do really is help teachers and policymakers understand more about the cognitive processes and about how brilliant brains are, especially when you're this age. If you'd like to implement this system in your preschool or primary school or learning support centre, please contact us for in-house training, online training, public workshops, even if just to learn more about a speech-to-print approach, about phonetic symbols, and about phoneme to grapheme mapping, code mapping as a route to orthographic mapping.